You step off the edge of the continental shelf. The sunlight begins to fade. The water turns from blue to indigo, then to black. Within minutes, you have descended past every creature you have ever seen in a nature documentary. Past the dolphins, past the tuna, past the great white shark. You keep falling. Below you is a place where no human being has ever truly lived. A place darker than any cave on Earth, heavier than any glacier, colder than the surface of Mars at midnight. And yet, somehow full of life. This is the bottom of the ocean. Most people assume the deep sea is empty, a flat black wasteland of mud and silence where nothing important happens. The science says the exact opposite. The bottom of the ocean is not the end of the world. It is one of the most active, strange, and biologically rich places on the entire planet. And for almost all of human history, we knew nothing about it at all. Why? Because reaching it is harder than reaching the surface of the moon. To understand what is down there, you have to understand what happens to your body as you descend. Every 10 meters, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere, roughly the weight of the air at sea level. At 100 meters, you would feel 11 atmospheres crushing every surface of your skin. At 1,000 meters, the pressure would already be enough to collapse a steel cylinder. At 11,000 meters, the deepest known point in the ocean, the pressure reaches over 1,000 atmospheres. That is more than 8 tons pressing down on every square inch of you. Your bones would not break. They would dissolve. This place has a name, the Challenger Deep. It sits at the bottom of the Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific, a scar in the seafloor so deep that if you dropped Mount Everest into it, the peak would still be more than 2 kilometers underwater. For most of history, scientists believed nothing could survive down there. They were wrong. In 1960, 2 men named Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh climbed into a small steel submersible called the Trieste. It looked like a fat metal balloon attached to a tiny pressurized sphere. Slowly, hour after hour, they sank into the deepest hole on Earth. When they finally touched the bottom, almost 11 kilometers down, they expected to see lifeless mud. Instead, Piccard reported watching a flatfish swim past the viewport. It should not have been possible. That single sighting changed marine biology forever. It meant the deepest part of the ocean was not dead. It meant life had figured out how to survive in conditions that would crush submarines and snap titanium. But how? To find the answer, you have to keep going down. Past the surface zones where light still reaches, past the twilight zone where eyes grow enormous to catch the last few photons, past the midnight zone where bioluminescence, the chemical light produced by living tissue, becomes the only form of illumination in the universe around you, down into the abyssal zone, and then into something even stranger, the hadal zone. Named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, the hadal zone begins at 6,000 meters and stretches down into the deepest trenches on Earth. For decades, almost no one studied it. The technology did not exist. The pressure was too great. The expense was too vast. Then came a man named Alan Jamieson. Jamieson, a marine biologist now at the University of Western Australia, has spent more time exploring the hadal zone than almost anyone alive. Using specially designed pressure-resistant cameras dropped on tethers, he has photographed the deepest fish ever recorded. A pale, translucent creature called the Mariana snailfish. It lives at over 8,000 meters below the surface. Its body has no scales. Its bones are paper-thin and partially uncalcified, which means soft and flexible. Its tissues are saturated with a chemical called trimethylamine N-oxide, a natural molecule that prevents the proteins in its cells from being crushed by pressure. The snailfish does not fight the deep. It surrenders to it. Its entire body has been re-engineered over evolutionary time to let the ocean pass through it. But the snailfish is not the strangest thing down there. In 1977, a research team led by the geologist Robert Ballard, working off the Galapagos Rift in the eastern Pacific, lowered a deep-sea submersible to study volcanic activity on the seafloor. What they found instead rewrote biology. They discovered cracks in the ocean floor that were releasing superheated water. Black, mineral-rich, and chemically toxic. The temperature near these vents reached over 300 degrees Celsius. There was no sunlight, no plants, no oxygen-producing organisms anywhere within reach, and yet the rocks were covered in life. Giant tube worms, longer than a person, with no mouths and no digestive systems. Ghost white crabs. Clams the size of dinner plates, forests of bacterial mats, an entire ecosystem flourishing in total darkness, fed by something almost no biologist had ever taken seriously before. Chemosynthesis. This is the part that should rearrange everything you thought you knew. Until that moment, every textbook on Earth taught that life depended on sunlight. Plants capture sunlight through photosynthesis. Animals eat the plants. The energy of the sun is the foundation of every food chain you have ever learned about. The hydrothermal vents of the deep ocean prove that this is not true. The bacteria living near these vents do not need sunlight. They convert the chemicals in the water, hydrogen sulfide, methane, and sulfur, directly into energy. Entire ecosystems are built on this alternative biology, life that has nothing to do with the sun at all. Which means, if life is possible without sunlight, then it may be possible in places we never thought to look. On the icy moons of Jupiter, beneath the frozen crust of Enceladus, in any world with liquid water and chemical heat. The bottom of your own ocean may be a preview of what life looks like across the universe, but the deep sea hides another secret, one that is only now being uncovered. Marine biologist Craig McLean, who has spent decades studying deep-sea ecosystems, has shown that the abyssal plains, the flat, muddy expanses that cover most of the seafloor, are not the empty wastelands they appear to be. They contain some of the highest levels of species diversity on the planet. Tiny creatures, most of them never named, are everywhere. Sediment samples taken from the deep often reveal hundreds of unknown organisms in a single handful of mud. Scientists now estimate that the deep sea may contain more undiscovered species than all of the rainforests of Earth combined. Most of these organisms will never be seen by human eyes. Most of them have no names. And here is where the bottom of the ocean stops being just a place and starts becoming something else. A reminder of how small your knowledge really is. You live on a planet whose surface is more than 70% water. Of that water, more than 95% has never been explored in detail by anyone. The deep sea is the largest habitable space on Earth. And yet, humanity has mapped the surface of Mars more thoroughly than the bottom of its own world. You walk through your life thinking the planet has been discovered. It has not. In the trenches, in the vents, in the silent abyssal plains, there are entire branches of life still waiting to be found. Animals that breathe in ways no biology textbook describes. Microbes that survive temperatures, pressures, and chemicals that should be lethal. Predators that have never seen the sun. Ecosystems that operate by rules we have only just begun to understand. When Victor Vescovo, an explorer and former naval officer, completed the deepest manned descent in history in 2019, he reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench in a specially designed submersible called the Limiting Factor. At nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, he reported something that no one expected. Floating in the deepest place on Earth, he saw plastic, a small piece of human-made waste drifting at the bottom of the world. Even there, even at the deepest point on the planet. The deep sea is not a separate world. It is your world. It is part of the same ocean you wade into in summer. The same ocean whose currents shape your weather, whose plankton produce half of the oxygen you breathe, whose temperature regulates the climate of every continent. What happens at the bottom matters at the top. So picture it one more time. You step off the continental shelf. The sun fades. The water grows heavy. You descend past the dolphins, past the great whites, past the giant squid, past the snailfish, past the tube worms glowing in the dark heat of the vents. You touch the silent floor of the deepest trench. And in that black, crushing, alien place, life is still there, still adapting, still inventing new ways to exist. The bottom of the ocean is not the end. It is the part of Earth that still belongs to itself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more. See you in the next one.